Hi, welcome to Journeys in Jiu-Jitsu. Your host, Professor Tom, with co-host, Professor Gabby. And this week, we thought it'd be interesting for members of our community to hear our journey through the belts and it's kind of what we learn as a result of it and how we can then bring that to our student base and hopefully they see themselves in the journeys that either I follow or that Professor Gabby follows as well. So first off, sort of talking about our white belts at the beginning. So I will jump straight into this. When I first started training Jiu-Jitsu, the first few months were very much a case of this is incredibly overwhelming as an experience. It's very uncomfortable. You're doing things that you've never done before. Your body's experiencing all of these new things and it became very overwhelming. Then as you gradually get higher up, or I gradually got higher up through the white belt, so I've been training like 8 to 10 months, you suddenly get this boost of being able to execute positions against people who are less experienced than yourself and start to feel good about yourself, start to give you this boost of confidence. And then when you get that a little bit higher, closer to your blue belt, you're suddenly realizing that the techniques you've kind of not mastered, I would say that you've practiced fairly frequently and can get off in a sparring session, you're able to get it off at lower belts quite consistently, but then also against a new blue belt. So you start to give yourself that really big boost of overconfidence. So I'd say that when I got to the end of my white belt journey, I felt like a really competent, confident white belt who was able to beat certain blue belts in the academy and really feel quite good at myself and felt that this jiu-jitsu game was really quite straightforward. So that sort of indicates that my journey starts to become all about overconfidence going through the early parts of the belts and how that was then, as you'll hear later on, knocked down drastically because you suddenly realize that this jiu-jitsu game is enormous and the few techniques you pick up at white belt will not keep you going all the way through to your black belt. Yeah. So how about yourself?
I think every belt has taught me like a different value, a different thing. Mm-hmm. So the white belt taught me to be humble because okay. I think I was I was confident, but I think I was arrogant. So I had this vibe of I know it all. I wasn't I was 19 years old when I started. So I was literally feeling the adult, the most adult as I ever been for obvious reasons. And I think that the whole experience on the white belt, it just showed me super quick that I was extremely vulnerable in the sense of okay, even though I have practiced all the sports and I consider myself to be quite athletic and learn things quick, physically speaking, Jiu-Jitsu was making me go through a lot of things, as you mentioned. It's overwhelming. You're doing stuff that your body's not used to. And then you just realize that you don't know shit. You don't know nothing. Yep. So I think I learned a lot of I learned the humble thing of man, there's still a lot of things that I don't know. Okay, I know this and that. I'm good at that other thing. But still, there is a lot of things that I need to learn. And I need to be mindful that people who I consider to be maybe stupid, they still have something to teach me. So I should not be stupid to be bad mean or I should just be more open. And I think that if the white belt doesn't teach you how to be humble, if the white belt doesn't humble you, that's something you will not learn in any other of your belts. You will hardly learn that, So I think that's the first, it's a very good belt. It's very important to put you in your place of ignorance and of an apprentice, of a student.
Yeah. I found the humbling experience later on in my journey. Later on, I did finish that white belt. Like you say, there is that arrogance to it, and I definitely had that arrogance to it. Because when you're training as a white belt, you're training in sessions with other white belts. and then it's just a case of being the best white belt and a load of white belts. And suddenly that's how the overconfidence and the arrogance can grow, is that you feel like in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king kind of situation. It's like, it doesn't matter, I can beat all these white belts. You don't have exposure to the higher belts. They're doing something else in some secret training other times of the day and stuff. So the white belt should have maybe had that humbling experience.
We can have another episode just to talk about this thing of separating people according to the
their
belt.
levels. Yeah.
So my experience was very different in Brazil when I started, and I think a lot of gyms in Brazil, and not just in Brazil, but they still follow this guideline of having just one practice and everybody with different levels, you know. So I come from a philosophy, a train of thought, an ideology of the most graduated person is responsible to looking after the non-graduated. So my experience was always like they would get a black belt who was like maybe tired or out of shape, or, you know, just older guy, and they would put me to go with them. And I was like, come on, you're going to do the technique with the black belt. And I think that I learned a lot.
How did that make you feel initially? Did you feel
it just showed me that I really didn't have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
Honestly, I didn't felt uncomfortable to be going with these men who were like double of my age, who could be my parents or whatever. They were very respectful of me. And I just felt that I was like learning stuff. They were teaching me.
Yeah.
It never felt much like a very big competition. So I was trained like and that's something that I bring when I am sparring new students or white belts or whatever. They would always give me the chance, like I was sparring with them, they would stop, give me time, see if I was seeing the trap that I was gonna get in. And, you know, sometimes they would talk to me during the sparring. Oh, now you need to pass the guard, open the guard, careful with that. So I still do that with a lot of the students when I am sparring against them, like the lower belts.
Yeah.
At this gym, I normally spar more with the women because of the women's class. So I think that it left a lot of good, positive impressions on me. And I think that maybe it just never felt like I needed to be better than the other white belts or anything like that.
Yeah.
I never felt like I needed to be better than anyone. And I also grow, like in this specific gym, I think all the expectations on me, they were too low. So I felt like all these people, all these men, mostly because there was no girls practicing really, they would just... I felt like all of them was like, a new girl practicing. Let's see how long this one is going to handle, you know, how long she's going to last.
And would they go really hard in training against you? Not trying to make you quit?
They never trained with me like to humiliate me. They never trained with me to put in my place because I think I never needed that. I was always like just chill, understanding that I didn't know a lot of stuff, but I was going to give my best. And I think they were always like some of them just got shocked. There was always a lack of surprise in some of the praises that they were giving me. Like, oh my gosh, you're strong. Oh my gosh, she's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it always had that kind of vibes. And then when they would say, oh, you're very good, part of me was like, I kind of know. I feel, I understand that. I don't know, and maybe for you also it was a different experience because you are much bigger than me. So when you started your white belt, maybe it was not as humbling because you had the size, you had the weight, you had the strength. Yeah. I never had that. No. So I always had to be technical and understand that, like, man, I need to master something. And the thing that I can master is technique and speed. And
having the opportunity to train those positions with a black belt and then fixing that technique from such an earlier stage in your journey.
Yeah, and also you also did this thing, Tom, of like, because when in Brazil you have a lot of people practicing, and depending on the gym that you go, you have much more black belts than white belts, depending on the gym, the maturity of the gym or whatever. So in my gym specifically, because you have the visual thing of having black belts, brown belts, purple belts, blue belts, and white belts, you already know your place. You already know that it's a long journey, so it's kind of difficult to become too arrogant
you'd see
in the context that you see there.
and that would be it for us.
You see the difference in the technique as well.
Yeah,
so you always know that you are shit.
So I first start, and I'm being taught by a brown belt, and I think the highest level was maybe 4-stripe blue belt or even a purple belt at the time. So you then see there's one purple belt and one brown belt, and then everybody else is basically just a white belt. So then it's just this free-for-all of white belts trying to, at the time, be the best white belt they could be and beating all the other white belts, because there was nothing else after that. And then everybody sort of matures together to become these blue belts, and you find that then you're no different than you were maybe a day ago or a month ago. You still know very little, but now maybe you've picked up this added pressure to think, oh, there was only a few blue belts in the gym, and I thought they were these like gods, and now you're this blue belt, and you're like, right, okay. And then you look at your techniques you're doing, and they are a little bit more advanced than you were previously doing when you were a white belt, and then you start to think, maybe I've been promoted too soon, but your professor knows exactly when they should promote you, and you start to then become maybe your confidence gets knocked a bit. So you're no longer overconfident, and I was no longer overconfident because I was still training and like doing well and improving. And it started to shift in my journey about whether I was doing it to be better than somebody else or whether I was doing it to be the best version I could be of myself. And that's when the confidence just goes.
Your belts, all the belts that you receive.
Yeah.
Were they always a surprise for you, or you knew you're going to get that belt?
The blue belt was definitely expected. It was like, when am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? I think I deserve it. When am I going to get it? I'm the best one of all these people. All the people that were sort of 180 centimeters, 6'2", 100 kilograms. I was like, yes, I'm the best one, and I should be getting my blue belt. When am I getting my blue? And I get my blue belt, and it means it doesn't change anything. It purely is just a bit of cotton around your waist. You start to then realize that you don't know very much, and the journey of a blue belt then starts to be so much further into the future, so much longer than your white belt, because you can remember back pretty much to when you started your journey, like to the day. Like you get your blue belt, it's going to be, for me, it was over 4 years until I then got promoted. And then remembering back when I got my blue belt, that's a day. And then the journey after that is just a slog of having all these other white belts who are me, trying to chase me down because they think they're as good as me because they think they should be a blue belt. And then all these new purple belts who've appeared, who basically are just this level of technique that I'm still going one position and then another position and then try another position, whereas they've already started this process of training. So I hit that blue belt with this huge amount of overconfidence, which then dropped when I realized it was then about me being as good as I can be, not better than the rest. And then as I progressed through my blue belt, I started to realize that I'm not adapting and changing how I train jiu-jitsu to be as good as I can be and be like these purple belts are. And then it just becomes this kind of a lot of pressure, and like your confidence drops and you start to become quite underconfident by the time you get to your top of your blue belt, because it doesn't matter how many people you tap. If you're tapping them with the same technique each time, something's telling you that you're not being the best you can be.
You're not progressing, right? Because they are just committing the same mistakes.
You're training against white belts, yeah, and you know how to read everybody else. Yeah. And you're then doing exactly what you were doing before, rather than now in the mindset now as a black belt, you're like, well, I'm going to do that. What are you going to do? Let's see where you go. Whereas before you're like, you don't let anybody do anything. You want to control as much as you can, and then you get the tap. But then that tap is the same tap you had 3 minutes ago, and you don't feel any different about it. You're like, well, that doesn't feel the same as it did. Something needs to change. And then you get your purple belt, and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen now. I didn't expect this. There is no way on this earth I am ready for this belt. Because then you see all the other purple belts and you think they are just light years ahead of where you are. Don't know how you found your blue belt then in that.
Well, my blue belt for me was chill, you know. Now there was not.
You've been training with black belts pretty much all the way through. It's like your technique is really good.
It never there was no belt that I ever received that gave me this feeling, oh my gosh, now a new universe is opening up. In the sense of like, now I have access to something new. Maybe when I got to the purple belt, because when I was practicing in Brazil as well, we would follow this thing of like, you don't do leg attacks until you reach the purple belt. Okay. That was how it was at my gym at the time. And then when I got to the purple belt, then I could do some stuff like the straight
foot lock?
Yeah, this kind of stuff. But I never engaged much with that. I learned how to defend it, but I never became good at attacking that. Then when I was a brown belt, there was an expectation that I put on myself that I should be learning leg attacks. But during my brown belt, there was pandemic. I was not practicing as much. Anyway, we might get to that later during this episode. But I felt like the blue belt was just a belt of persistency. Because when you are a white belt, a lot of stuff is still new and you go and you know. But then with the blue belt, it just felt like I needed to be persistent and stay practicing and stay motivated and all of those things. And kind of all my belts, I was kind of expecting, I knew I was going to get them. The only belt that I really was not expecting to receive when I did was the brown belt. All the other ones, I had a vibe already, you know, because you are like, you reach a point of technique where you're not that easy to be submitted. It's like when you are in a good competition with people from your belt and people with higher belt than you, one higher belt, then you're giving them some trouble. And also at the end of the sparring, it was very regular in my gym that the colleagues would say, this is Gabi is casca grossa. Ela é casca grossa. He's like she has a thick skin of the three. So they would just comment between them that I was like being good and all. So that was validating, and I just had the feeling, because sometimes we would say, this right here is a purple belt in disguise. Yes. This kind of comment. So you kind of feel a little bit comfortable. When also the time that I was practicing three days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, because I was in university, so I had a lot of time. So I don't know, for me the blue belt was persistence, keep practicing.
Yeah.
And then the purple belt was discipline. So when I was maybe 20, I started practicing when I was 19. I don't remember how old I was when I got the blue belt, but when I was around like maybe 23 years old, I received my purple belt, and then I moved to Mexico. So I stayed in Mexico for a year and a half, didn't practice much there. I started practicing, I started teaching, I hurt myself. Anyway, things for another episode, another day. And then I stayed, like, I had a purple belt. I think I barely practiced this. In terms of time, I didn't practice as much in a lot of different belts. That's something that we can also talk in another episode. But anyway, so when it was 2018, I got back to Brazil. I had the purple belt already for maybe a year and a half, which I barely practiced. So when I got to Brazil, I started practicing again, and I stayed practicing for 1 year. 2019 was the year that I practiced religiously. I was at work, I was like traveling a lot once a month for work. So it would be maybe 1 week, 2 weeks away. So when I was in my city, I was like, I don't want to train. I don't want to go because I'm tired, because like, I just feel lazy. But then I would say, hey, you need to go, because you're never at the city. You're not practicing when you're traveling, when you're going to practice. I understand that you don't want to go, Gabriela, but that's something that's going to be good for you.
This is your internal monologue.
I would force myself to go. And then at the end of 2019, I received my brown belt. And for me, it was just like, that was the belt that I really didn't expect it. I thought I was going to be another year on the purple belt. So that was, wow. And then when I got to the brown belt, then I realized, man, the purple belt taught me discipline. This thing of not relying on motivation and just going because you're really happy and going through a very good phase where you're like flying. No. So the brown belt, I remember there was a lesson. Right now, I don't remember what was the lesson. And the brown belt, I got it at the end of 2019. Then we had 2020 pandemic. Yep. I didn't practice until I got here. So maybe I spent like 1 year without practicing. I started practicing at the end of 2021 again as a brown belt. Okay. I felt like recently graduated to the brown belt. And I started practicing. I was in Brighton. I was practicing in Elements Jiu-Jitsu. Shout out to the black belt there. Yusuf, thank you. Very good to be at your gym. Also, Yusuf opened me the door to go work with his brother, Yunis, who was a brown belt at the time. And he was responsible for the kids' teams. So I was teaching maybe 3 days, 4 days a week, and I was not practicing. So my whole trajectory in the brown belt was much more related to developing abilities and tools as an instructor than really as a practitioner. So I didn't practice as much. You know, I would practice maybe all the time that I was in Brighton, that lasted like 1 year and a couple of months, less than 1 year and a half. I didn't practice much, but I taught a lot. And I saw a big difference in my jiu-jitsu. And because when you're teaching kids, most of the time you're teaching a lot of basic stuff, but with a high technical level, then I feel like I have a very good basic jiu-jitsu that works a lot. And I got back to Brazil. So in Brazil I got back to Brazil in 2023. So I stayed practicing that year, more consistent, maybe like 3 times a week for a little bit. And then I got my black belt at that end. But I was just like, man, I'm already teaching, you know. My maestri, my professor knows that most of my journeys, when I'm here, I'm practicing here. When I'm not here, I'm practicing in a different country, different place. He knows that, I think that he knows that I'm not a regular student that is always here. I think he understands that I have some sort of loyalty toward him and gratitude, but I think he understands that I am someone that's also very self-taught and not just relying and dependent on his gym, on our team, on like his lessons, because I am someone that is going elsewhere and doing other stuff. So maybe he already knew that, and for him maybe he just felt like, man, I think that's it. She already has the maturity, she's already teaching. She's like very good here, good leadership. I saw a lot of growth in her journey. So maybe that's what he had in his mind at the time, I don't know. So he just felt like, yeah,
as a black belt.
Yeah, like your whole circle, your whole journey.
You're not going to stop training. You're going to keep perfecting and doing the best you can do and being the best you can be.
So I just, and for me it was very good, like it was very special, because when I got the brown belt, I was the first woman who ever had a brown belt from him. And he has been teaching for a long, long time. So it's also very telling about like how women were getting to his gym, not staying there. Okay. They would move to different gyms or stop practicing or whatever. So I was the one that was able to keep going. So I was the first one who got the brown belt. And then when I got the brown belt, it felt different than the other ones. First, because I was not expecting, but also because the other colleagues, some of them who had seen me practicing since the beginning, people who were growing with me on the journey, then all of a sudden, like all these men, they kind of started respecting me in a way that they never did. You know, like, no, she's a brown belt. Yeah. Like, wow, she's the first woman that gives a brown belt too. So it was just telling as well of the environment that I was at, you know? And the black belt, I think it was a full circle. I got my black belt and then it just felt humbling again. Because then you realize, man, jiu-jitsu is deep. Yeah. And look all these things, all these details that I didn't know before. So I think on the other belts, I already knew how to do like arm bars. Yes,
you already know jiu-jitsu.
Triangles, like some stuff. But now in the black belt, for me, it was really like something opening up, like mind-blowing to see how the sport is deep, how there is still a lot of things that I need to master.
Yeah.
That I need to develop. So every day you still learn, and that's one of my favorite things about Jiu-Jitsu. It's like endless opportunities of learning.
It's very true. And that everything you're learning is beneficial to your Jiu-Jitsu journey, regardless of what it is in life. Because whatever plays out on the mat pretty much plays out in the outside world as well. And you're picking up skills and techniques from the mat and your experiences on the mat that are then helping with your everyday experiences out on the streets. On the streets.
And when I got my black belt at the end of 2023, I remember also that I had another break, that I was not practicing as much. And then I came to the UK and I was teaching in a different gym. And that was the first time that I felt some sort of imposter syndrome, because you mentioned before about that. So I think that I always was confident in myself and in my Jiu-Jitsu, independent of the belt and what I was going through. Because you can be humble and you still be confident.
Yes, very much so.
And then when I got to the black belt, now I'm humble again, but now I'm not confident. So that was the first time that I had this moment of like, man, I don't know. I mean, I always felt that I deserved the belt. Also, I was the first black belt, like female black belt of my professor. So I always felt like I deserved that as much as any of my other colleagues, because I was practicing as much as any of them, not complaining, not asking for any sort of different treatment because I was a woman. If there was 20, I don't know, multiple, hundreds of push-ups to do, I was gonna do them. It doesn't matter if I had to stop and like do them slowly or do them on my knees, but I was gonna do it. So there was never like this thing of I need to be treated different because I'm a woman, but always this conscious of like, they are gonna treat me different because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
They are gonna have different expectations. And Jiu-Jitsu, my journey is gonna be very different from them, from their journey, because I am a woman. And then like, I think that this feeling of imposter, it arrived as soon as I got to this gym. The technical level there was very good. So that's shaking me a little bit, like, wow, there is still a lot of stuff that I need to learn. But I think that I didn't feel confident, not because my Jiu-Jitsu was not as high as their Jiu-Jitsu. That had an impact, but it was more about the dynamics. I just felt like the gym was not, I don't know.
Conducive to a good
It just felt like it was not an environment that you could commit mistakes.
Okay.
It felt also there was like some hypervigilance and judgment on your mistakes or your right doings, you know?
Yep.
So I think that the environment was really not the best for me, not right.
Okay.
And that's what kind of shaking my confidence even more. So that was the first time that I had this poof. Yeah. But you know, it was just a matter of like, I learned so much in that gym, technically speaking. Didn't make many friends, maybe no friends. But I'm used to being like a lone learner in Jiu-Jitsu. So that was something that maybe for you was different, but it took me like ages to actually make friends with Jiu-Jitsu. And still nowadays, I don't know if I can say that I have a very deep friend from Jiu-Jitsu that I can go out with this person. I mean, you're gonna hang out and talk about deep stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like the relationships in Jiu-Jitsu, some of them can be very shallow.
Yep.
They can be friendly, but they can still be shallow. And some other relationships, they are just really like transactional.
Yes.
In the sense of you're just going to spar against each other. Nothing else is coming from here. Maybe we'll learn something, maybe no. Depends on the person, their mood on the day.
Yes.
And yeah, so until today, sometimes I see people, they come to practice and they are talking to each other instead of doing the technique. And in my head, it's like, why are you here? Because I was going to do the Jiu-Jitsu.
It's a robot.
Yeah, for me, it was always like about practicing and giving my best. And then for me, it was like surprising because a lot of people say, I know, I came to Jiu-Jitsu because I was looking for community. And I was like, man, what community? I don't know. I just felt most of my journey, I felt like I didn't belong.
Yeah.
you know.
When you say that, yeah, because of being
Because
the
of
first woman
everything,
and
yes.
getting a
Too
brown
many
belt and
layers
black
to
belt.
that.
Yes.
But that was also a regular feeling for me of not belonging in other groups as well. So I always felt a little bit like a loner in multiple spaces, which I think from one side is good, because then everything that I was doing was about like me. It was not about trying to please the other people and make friends. It was really my personal interest. Anyway, so here I'm still shocked that people come to Jiu-Jitsu to make friends. And like, well, okay, now I learned to do better with that. But before it was just like, man, this person comes and they don't stop talking. And they don't stop even during the technique, even during the fight. I'm like, man, you're here really just to make friends. And that's
Have a good
absolutely
time,
all right.
which is exactly
Absolutely
what we
all
want
right.
for people here as well. If that's what they want.
Everybody comes with a different reason, a different purpose. It's important that you find your purpose, your reason. And according to what you're looking for in Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to have a different behavior, different like expectation, different goals.
Your journey through your belts is going to be very different
Exactly.
to ours. Some people will resonate with it, and some people won't, and it'll be very different.
Yeah. And for you, Tom, do you have anything to add to your brown belt?
My purple belt, really.
The purple belt.
Yeah. So I got my purple belt without really expecting it. I started to be better as a blue belt. I say be better in that I was trying harder to be as good as I could be without worrying too much about everybody else and how they were performing. Spending time on the mats as much as I could, training 3 times a week, which was working for me as a routine, which then going on what you were saying about your purple belt was having that discipline and the routine, the commitment of training regularly through the purple belt was really helpful to get both through the back end of the blue and through the purple belt as well. And the thing about the purple belt journey was that it was felt very much harder than any of the other belts, because now you're at this midway point where you can see the possibility that if you carry on training, as long as something really serious doesn't happen to you, you're going to get a black belt, because it's already instilled. It's already, your lifestyle has already changed as a result of it. You're already doing jiu-jitsu basically every day, regardless of whether you're training on the mats or not. You're always still thinking about it. You're always still watching content as much as you can on the tube to work. You're just in jiu-jitsu. And so you're trying to be this best version of yourself, but your journey maybe, depending on how you learn, is maybe slower than somebody else's. And if that person, which it happened to me, they were very good at the gym I was training, you would spend a lot of your time being the nail to both purple belts, brown belts and black belts, and then blue belts, because they were confident and comfortable in the specific things they were doing. You're trying to change what you're doing and build chains of positions together, and then you're constantly failing at that. So you're failing continuously day by day, and if you didn't have that built-in routine and discipline, your mental health would be absolutely shattered. I don't know many walks of life where you could turn up to something that you expect to enjoy and then leave feeling terrible on a regular basis until you suddenly, it suddenly becomes right. So you train for 3 years in a purple belt and you just get to the point where you're like, and now I'm comfortable. I've got my confidence back that has been shot from this overconfident white belt all the way down to a place where you've just built it back up to 0 again. And then you're presented with your brown belt. And it was just mind blowing, because now not only have you looked on brown belts from when you first started as being sort of the high level, you're now one of them, yet you're still struggling through only just getting comfortable at being a purple belt. And then the added extra pressure came along with, well, now you're a brown belt. Would you like to teach some sessions? And you're like, no, that is not, no. But that's what my head's saying. And my people-pleasing side went, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. That sounds like a great idea. Of course, it was meant to be, because the only way then you can upskill yourself is to take risks.
Yeah.
So you take a risk. And coaching, as it has been, all the way through, is the best thing I've done in order to improve my jiu-jitsu, because you start to be able to But you have to break down all the positions that you're going to teach to ensure that when you teach it, the majority of the people are going to be able to understand it. So you go down into a deep, granular level, which then helps you in your own journey as a brown belt and then up into a black belt. So brown belt lasted for a couple of years. Added complications when you're training and not teaching in, like you said, at your gym as purple belt, the leg attacks suddenly became an option. Yeah, for us it was brown belt, and knee bars, all the different kind of lower body stuff was, lower leg stuff was available. Mandatory, yeah.
Becomes mandatory.
And then you've got the people who aren't training, who aren't coaching, are training, are picking all this stuff up. And yeah, you're walking away having experienced some things that you can't do in terms of knee bars and stuff. But it's not that damaging to your own self-esteem because you've got coaching that's actually now giving you this passion and this enjoyment. So that stuff is fun, it's great, but being able to show somebody a technique and watch them hit that technique, that's giving you more joy. Then I carried that through. And then you keep training because you've already got the routine built in. You're going to get your black belt eventually. It's just a little surprise when it happens. And for me, it was a surprise when it happened. I was at the session and I was informed that I was going to get my black belt. Not there. I had to then travel all the way up to Nottingham in this big conference centre and in front of hundreds of people make a speech. All these people I didn't know. I had to drive myself up there. I had to wear a gi while everybody else is wearing bow ties and everything else.
What context was that? No.
It was very strange. It was very strange.
It was like, what was that? A conference of...
It was like a... I'm trying to think of the phrase that they would, like a going out ceremony or something like that for black belt, brown belts turning into black belts. So all brown belts across the UK who were going to get promoted went to this hotel in Nottingham with loads of Gracie Barra, Victor was
organized.
there, Growler, they were all there. A few of the team that I was with, we went. So I was accepting my black belt. I was the only one. I had to drive the minibus myself, so I couldn't have any fun. I was told I was going to this conference centre and I would be presented with my black belt, but it didn't register in my head that I would need a gi to do this. So I turn up with a suit and
hey, look at your size. It's not gonna be easy to find like grab it from anyone.
Exactly.
You know?
But you're gonna get a black belt, but you're not getting it in a session. You're getting it at this formal dinner.
So why would you even think about the gi?
Why would a gi? Did you bring your gi? No, because I'm gonna eat dinner in a suit. Why would I? Oh, you need a gi. Oh, and it was just this odd thing where all these brown belts are in gis, but everybody else is in
formal
suits,
ties.
And
how did you get your gi? Who poured you the gi?
I just had to get one from just random belt, random gi, accept it, get a black belt.
And did it fit you? Or it
A3,
was like
A3. Somebody else's A3 belt, A3, yeah. And we all walked in. We got a belt. You thank Braulio Estima, you thank Victor Estima, and then you do your little speech. Which means nothing to anybody because nobody knows you, you don't know them, and you're talking to this little small table in the corner about what it means in your journey and stuff. And people clap and applause, and then, and that's it. And then you drive 150 miles back.
And this is still
2 o'clock in the morning.
There is still the conference.
There might be, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you're a black belt, and suddenly you realise that the imposter syndrome starts all over again from where it was early on, and that black belt meant something deep down in you which you don't think you can live up to. So then you have to start working on what you as a black belt are, not what you think a black belt is. And you being a black belt is very different to your thought of
what it is.
I know, exactly, yes. Muhammad Ali competing or something like that.
It feels like when you get to the black belt, then you look and it's like, man, they're humans.
Yeah.
They're mortals like me.
That's it. And now all you're doing is that you're just relearning everything again.
Yeah.
It's just a cycle, but you're doing it in a very, very different way. And no longer is it about sweating on the mats and picking up techniques. It's about something very different. It's about everybody else's journey, and it's about you holding all these other people and their progression and their growth within the art.
I'm gonna make a question. Do you feel like your growth in Jiu-Jitsu, it was being connected to your growth, personally speaking?
Yes.
So I'm making this question because when I got, I was in the UK as a brown belt, and I was like, man, I think I am a black belt now. And it's not from a place of like being arrogant, like I know everything and look how good I am and blah, blah, blah. But no, it was about the maturity. So when I was here in the UK studying my master's and doing a lot of stuff like that I was struggling before in my personal life in terms of like being an adult. When I was here and I was like, man, actually I'm very good at being an adult. And that's when I felt like, I think I reached the black belt. I think I'm a black belt now. So for me,
I would like to have that certainty.
all the belts that I got, I think they were linked to some personal development, to some personal challenge that I have outgrown, that I was able to overcome. And I will think more about that, like to think, man, what was going on when I got my blue belt? What was going on when I got... Because right before I get my purple belt, I was going to change to Mexico. So it felt like rito de passagem, like a passage ritual.
Okay.
Do you have that kind of?
A ritual. Rites of passage.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm trying to say. So all the belts that I received, they always come in very important personal moments that I was going through. That's why before I got the black belt, even before I got the black belt, I was already feeling like a black belt because I had achieved such a level of maturity in my personal life that I just felt like, man, that's it. I just need to keep practicing. I am already teaching, and I was born to teach.
Yeah.
So in the brown belt, that clarity, because I started teaching as a purple belt in Spanish. It's always a challenge to teach in a different language because then you need to learn all the new words on that language, like a gi, lapel, a lot of different names of the body, all those things. And then because I was already teaching and I was being the head of some of the classes for the kids, it just gave me such a security, safety in the activity of teaching itself, in the position of an instructor. So I just felt like, man, I am a black belt. I got that before getting the black belt. I felt like I have achieved some requisites that you would have to be a black belt. So
they always had triggers on me of something else that was going on in my personal life. And once I'd finally worked out what was the issue and overcome it as a result of the skills I'd picked up in Jiu-Jitsu in my personal life, then I would settle down and be comfortable and the confidence would start to grow again. Only for then it to be shattered by getting presented with a new belt. But then it always happened, there was always something else going on in my life. Or deep down it was the same problem. I was just unpicking layer after layer after layer to get down to the root cause, which the Jiu-Jitsu gave me the tools for, but not enough to be able to do it until I reached my black belt. By the time I reached my black belt, I was then very comfortable, very confident after I got over the imposter syndrome, because I felt I'd peeled this onion down to its final nib and interrogate what that problem was. And then that problem was no longer an issue. And I found a solution for it. And that then gave me the confidence and the self-belief to be able to go forward with it.
Now the last question, so we finish this episode. Do you have a favorite belt and why?
Ooh.
What was the favorite belt and
Favorite
why?
belt and why? Black belt. Because as a result of being a black belt, I was able to open my own academy and employ you and employ Sophia and have 180 lovely individuals changing their life through Jiu-Jitsu. I wouldn't have been able to do that with any belt. How about
Fair
you?
enough. From the purple belt, that was the belt that I had the most enjoyment, you are in a point where Jiu-Jitsu, you can beat some people, you're gonna give trouble to other people, they still are going to beat you, but it's not going to be that easy. So I felt like that was the belt with the least amount of expectations. So for me, it was like a moment where, man, I am a purple belt. There will be some expectations from people, but I'm not giving a fuck about it. Like, I don't care a lot about their expectations. And I'm here just to practice and have a good time. But all the other belts, they have different moments. I think that was my favorite, but maybe the most difficult one for me has been the black belt. It's the most difficult one, because then you just feel a lot of the weight of being a black belt.
As it should be, because it's so significant.
The responsibility, the meaning, the significance of it. But I think that for me, maybe the weight is also related to the teaching thing. You know, so when you are teaching, you always are worried about the other person. It's always about the other person. When I'm practicing here, it's not as the same as when I go practice somewhere else. Because when I go somewhere else, I'm just a student with a black belt. But here, I will always be an instructor, a professor. And you, do you have any least likable belt, like or more difficult one?
I think I find them all difficult in their own ways, and
Fair enough.
Probably another episode would go into each belt itself and the positives and negatives as a result of it, both for me and for what I see as a professor. That would be a useful way of getting another episode out.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us on Journeys in Jiu-Jitsu. We'll see you next time.